the recording started. Yeah, I've lost all the faces I saw a second ago. So that is a good sign. But with that, welcome everyone this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. I am very pleased to hand over to our first speaker, Kat Sexton. Kat, if you'd like to take the floor, please.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. So I'm Kat Sexton. I am the Deputy Director of Local AI at MHCLG. Thank you, for asking me to come and open today's event. It's a great privilege for me. So I'm actually on secondment at the moment from Birmingham City Council, covering for Clara Barnett, who's on maternity leave. So really lucky to be leading the excellent team this year. So I'm about 2 months in now, so almost 2 months anyway. So there's a real drive from central government, and we've got such an ambitious agenda across government for AI, and I'm really pleased to be leading the the sort of drive for AI in local government at the moment. And obviously we work quite closely with digital planning too. So there's loads of really cool things going on there. So if you haven't seen them, there's the AI Opportunities Action Plan on the government website, and lots going on with the Prime Minister's AI Exemplars programme too. So we really want to make sure that local government is front and centre. We've also got digital planning. One of the exemplar projects is the Extract tool, and on our AI for our local AI programme, we're looking to support AI across local government to drive efficiencies, reduce costs, and improve service quality. So we're just sort of kick-starting our programme at the moment, sort of looking to offer AI tools for all of local government. So this is obviously really special to me as somebody who is usually working in local government. I'm really excited to see the show and tell today. So thank you very much and enjoy.
Thank you, Kat. Really appreciate that. So I'm just going to take a moment to set the scene a little bit further on digital planning. So my name is Alfie Murphy O'Reilly, and I sit in the PropTech team, which sits within the digital planning programme, which has a very distinct vision. That is to make the planning system in England fit for the 21st century, transforming it from a slow document-based process into a modern data-driven system powered by user-centred products and services. So we have a few opportunities to transform planning service, and we can do that through plan making. So have a full universal coverage of local plans and strategic plans as Parliament, through decision making. So faster, better development management processes with more certainty and lower costs, and data. So planning data that is easy to find, use, and trust. And within the digital planning programme, we have the PropTech team, and we have the Innovation Fund, which is something that you might hear mentioned throughout Terry's presentation. So I just wanted to take a moment to take you through that. So we have the opportunity to catalyse change in these areas through PropTech Fund, and you'll see that as the years have progressed, so have the areas that we have tackled. So starting in 2021, looking at digital citizen engagement, all the way through to helping the current government's ambitions of 1.5 million homes. You'll also see that there is a nod to round 6 on this, which I can go into a little bit more detail at the end of this session. But that is enough of setting the scene. I am going to pass over to Terry now, who can explain the project a little bit further. Terry.
Thank you very much, Alfie. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Terry D'Souza. I'm a team leader at Greater Cambridgeshire Planning Service, and I work in the planning policy team. So I'm not a digital expert by any sense of the stretch of the imagination, but yes, we have been involved in a number of PropTech projects. And actually, Alfie, it's scary to think that this project's been going for sort of 3 years, really, in terms of PropTech round 3. I'm just going to give you a bit of an introduction this afternoon to kind of why Greater Cambridge decided to look at AI to help us with our emerging local plan work. And then Alex from the University of Liverpool will then come in and talk a little bit more about the tool itself. So if we could just move on to the next slide, please, Alfie. Thank you. So just in terms of our baseline, so we try and do as much kind of digitization of the planning work that we do as possible. Yes, we have PDFs and a very extensive document library, but we really try and push the kind of digital first approach. And that's been really well received by our local stakeholders, by our members, and the broader public as well. We've been out for consultation 3 times now on our emerging local plan, and the earlier 2 stages received about 9,500 representations to both consultations. So, you know, the best part of 19,000 comments to get through in the space of about 18 months. So there's a lot of data there for us to kind of work through. Now, because we take quite a digital first approach, we've been quite fortunate. Most of the reps that we get in and submissions are typically via electronic means, which is really good. But now, as we all know, there are lots of different types of electronic kind of ways that people can communicate with us. Quick surveys, our consultation platform, which is JDI Solutions, as well as a quick survey that we had online as well. So even though it's digital, it comes forward in lots of different shapes and sizes, and that's quite a challenge for us as a planning team to kind of work through. Next slide, please, Alfie. So yes, and as I said, there's lots of data, but not always as we kind of want it. One of the biggest challenges that lots of councils across the country face is the fact that we get so many representations submitted via email, and those emails tend to include lots of kind of PDF documents. In 2021, we received about 19% of our reps through emails, and the kind of example here on the screen as Alfie's kind of flicking through really just shows this was one submission by one site promoter. Yeah, it's quite a large site, but these are the sort of things that kind of come into us. So they've got greenbelt assessments, landscape assessments, economic impact assessments, transport studies, the lot. And this is just one site. Like we've had the best part of 1,000 sites submitted to us now through the local plan process, as well as all the representations that we receive as well about all of the policies. So what we receive is so broad, so vast, and it comes in such different ways. It's really difficult for us to kind of manage that. Thank you, Alfie. Next slide, please. So we back in 2023, we were fortunate enough to be awarded some PropTech funding to see how we could kind of see what we could do to kind of change the way that we work. So it wasn't all about AI. We've worked very closely with JDI Solutions to improve the back end and the front end of their consultation platform, which has been really, really helpful. And we also did a bit of a data discovery as well before we started, and that really just mapped out the end-to-end process of when a submission comes in, what does it look like? What are the different formats? How do we process that as a team? And then how do we then kind of register those submissions? How do we respond to those? How do we summarize those? How do we report back to our members and our communities on all of those consultation outputs? So that was a really important piece of what we did. But the AI element then kind of came in towards the back end of this program. We kind of got the consultation platform the way we wanted it. We understood all of the kind of pain points, and then we thought, well, actually, could we start to think about using AI to try and support the work that we do? And I think it's really important to kind of emphasize it's about supporting what we're doing, not replacing what officers are doing, not about making decisions. This is very much about trying to take away some of the administrative burdens that we have to deal with when we're going through a local plan process. I don't think anybody here on the call kind of goes into the board of planning to sit there and summarize thousands of public consultation responses. I might be wrong, but it's not why I did it. So I think what we're trying to do is see how we can support our planning officers rather than kind of replacing the work that they do, so they can really focus on the technical aspects. So through a competitive procurement process, we went with the University of Liverpool, and that's been really, really good. I've got to be honest, it's been great because they're an academic institution, so it's not like working with a private company. It's been a real collaborative approach, which has actually been fantastic because we're demanding, we ask for lots, and what's been fantastic about working with the university is that they've been very amenable, but equally ethics is so important to what they do as an academic institution, and it's obviously really important to us in terms of what we do as a public facing organization. Thank you, Alfie. So in terms of what we've done so far, so we've developed with the university a bespoke large language model, and effectively it's been trained on planning data. So we gave the university 55,000 previous comments that we had received from 15 years worth of consultations. So area action plans, supplementary planning documents, local plans, you name it. If we've consulted on it over the past 15 years, those comments went off to the University of Liverpool, and that all kind of went into the LLM in terms of its training. So it's bespoke to planning. It's not like a just general Chat GPT or a Gemini or any of those sorts of platforms, which is just generic. It understands the kind of planning context. So it will know, for example, that an AAP, if someone's referred to that in their response, that's an area action plan, not the Association of American Publishers. It's also been trained on about 45,000 other key terms, and I'm sure Alex can come in later and provide a bit more information on that. Coming back to kind of the ethical point, we really wanted to bring people on the journey with us. So we wanted to understand a little bit more from them about their kind of thoughts about AI just generally, about the thought of us using AI to summarize their comments. So we had a couple of focus groups where we got members of the general public, as well as kind of planning stakeholders. So that was kind of stat bodies, parish councillors, people that are very engaged locally in planning issues. We got them together to kind of have some focus groups to understand kind of some of the kind of key issues, thoughts, concerns, etc. That was really helpful. What that kind of led to was a couple of things. One was we now have an FAQ document on our website, which kind of shows some of the kind of key questions that came out of those focus groups, like what are the environmental impacts of running the tool? We can point to them and say, well, it's the same as sending 2 emails. That's the kind of environmental impact of running the LLM. What happens to the data? Where's it stored? All of these sorts of questions that they have, we wanted to be really upfront about that, and so we've kind of put that in our FAQ. The other thing that we did is we developed what's called the instant summarization tool, and I'll come on to that in a moment. We didn't just want to kind of just run with this though, as this is, we've developed an LLM, it's great. We just, plug it in and let's go. We did a bit of an evaluation to start with. So we got our planning officers to summarize 300 responses in real time as business as usual to 3 consultations that we did around this time last year. And it took our officers about 18 hours to summarize all of those comments in the way that they would normally do. We then got the LLM to summarize exactly the same responses, and the LLM managed to do it in 16 minutes. So obviously there's a huge time benefit there, but this isn't just about time savings. This is also about maintaining quality. So what we wanted to do is make sure that we did an evaluation. So we literally put the LLM outputs next to the officer outputs, and we looked at them side by side to see whether there was a difference in kind of quality. And to be honest, there wasn't really. In some instances, actually, the LLM was probably more detailed than what our planning officers were doing in terms of their kind of business as usual approach. So broadly speaking, we were really pleased with that. And again, some of the outputs from that evaluation exercise have gone onto the website, so people can actually see in real terms, what the difference is between a human and the planning officer. And the LLM. I think it's really important to say though that in terms of what we're doing, the LLM is there to, as I said earlier, is there to support what we're doing. And we've made the conscious decision at GCSP that we will still review all of the summaries that the LLM is producing. So we're not just kind of taking a big leap of faith and saying, oh, we're sure that the LLM's doing absolutely everything fine, and then we can 100% trust it. We're being quite careful about how we're doing this moving forward. And so what we're doing is literally all of the responses that the LLM is generating, we are reviewing all of those summaries just to make sure that it's picking up on the key issues that people are raising within their submissions, because we're a bit of a guinea pig in this space, and we just want to make sure that things are coming along the way we want them to, and that is then feeding back to Alex and the university in terms of them refining the tool further. So it's a really a cautious approach, but I think necessary at this point in time. Alfie, next slide, please. Yes, thank you. And this is the instant summarizer. So one of the things that the focus group said is they'd love to see what the summaries are in real time. So rather than just submitting their response and then us summarizing it through the tool in the background, they would like to see what it's doing in real time. So this is what our consultation platform looks like. So if you wanted to make a comment on a particular policy, you'd put it in the top box at the top. But then what you can now do is hit the big green button that says get AI to summarize my comments, and it would literally provide you with an instant summary in the box below. Now, I think this is really good because you can see it. as the user, you can be, it's as open and transparent as you can get, really, in terms of what the AI tool is doing. But if you don't like it, you can actually go in and just amend it yourself. So you might say, oh, actually, yeah, it's done a pretty good job, but actually it's missed that key point that I was trying to get across. So I'll just go in and I'll amend that, and then you can submit it to us. So actually it's putting, we talk about the human in the loop, and when we review things, we're trying to make sure the planner's in the loop, making sure that the AI is producing things properly. But actually, if you put the user in the loop at the very beginning, it means that they can almost self-validate the AI outputs to make sure that they're happy that it's producing a true summary of what they're doing. So this was a key piece of work that came out of those focus groups, and a great bit of work that I think the team have done. And again, it's that collaborative approach between the university as well as JDI Solutions and us as a public sector body. Alfie? Thank you. So we're now at the point where we're now trying to stress test this tool. Now, we know that it works for us at Greater Cambridge. It's great. I love it. And it links in with our consultation platform, and it produces the summaries that exactly the way that we want them to be produced. But we know that different councils have different kind of outputs. They receive submissions in different ways. There's lots of different consultation platforms out there. So what we're trying to do is see whether it can work elsewhere in different contexts and with different consultation platforms. So working with MHCLG, so we're piloting this tool now with 5 other planning authorities, and Alex will cover this in a bit more detail moving forward. And we also brought Historic England into this as a critical friend in the process. I think it's really important that a statutory body gets to see what some of these AI summaries are looking like from their perspective. So we're asking them to see essentially whether they think the AI tool is summarising their reps in the way that they would expect. So yeah, so we're very, very keen to make sure basically that this tool is available to all LPAs moving forward. And this is kind of the purpose of this pilot project, is really to kind of make sure that it's kind of fit for purpose. It's really robust. And it's just really easy and straightforward to procure. You know, we all, everyone on this call who works in the public sector knows how difficult procurement can be sometimes, and how long it can be. So what we would really like to do is try and, obviously this is Liverpool's tool, but I think there's a shared ambition to make this affordable and really easily available for LPAs up and down the country. I think that might be my last slide. Thanks, Alfie.
Thank you, Terry. Professor Alex Lord, please.
Just Alex is fine. Thanks, Alfie. Sorry, I've got a cold, so there might be a bit of coughing and spluttering during this. But yeah, it's great to be here this afternoon. If you could move me on in slides, that'd be great, Alfie. Super. So Terry's done a really first-rate job of describing all the kind of history and context of this, and this slide basically duplicates a tiny bit of what Terry has already really ably talked about. So I won't trespass on stuff that Terry's already spoken about. But the one thing I suppose I will talk a tiny bit about on this slide is just to reinforce some of the points that Terry made about this being a collaborative endeavour. We've spent a lot of time working together. We meet weekly, usually actually more than once per week, and have done since the back end of 2024. So we've spent a lot of time talking about this and trying to make sure that it's tailored to the expectations and requirements of Greater Cambridge and so on. But where Terry finished is the true point, which is that there are some aspects of how public consultations are conducted by local planning authorities that are cognate, that they're consistent across the piece, and there are some aspects of practice which are bespoke to each individual local authority. So what we want to try and do, obviously, is do exactly as Terry described it, which is to build a tool which is available to any and all local planning authority, and it does all the essential things that a planning officer is currently expected to do. Where possible, we want to try and make advances in that. So things like the instant summarizer where Terry finished, we think that's an improvement on the process. So historically, if I was a citizen of Cambridge, I would have maybe maybe made a response, and I wouldn't see the summary that was produced. The instant summarization tool that Terry just described is a human touch point. It's a way in which the technology democratizes this whole process more than was currently or historically the case. Now I'm able to see the summary that's produced of my own submission, change it, make sure that I'm content with it. That wouldn't have been the case historically. So we've tried to design something which is meeting all sort of essential requirements of consultation wherever it might be. Yes, it's going to be faster because that's the way the technology works, but our goal is to make sure it doesn't really matter to me whether it's 16 minutes or 17 minutes in the case that Terry mentioned a second ago. What matters to me and my other colleagues at Liverpool who I'm speaking for today is that the outputs are of at least the same quality that we would have expected under a human-centered approach. And where possible, we're able to introduce extra touch points so that we can have public confidence in the process. And professional confidence in the process as well, that we're actually producing outputs that try and advance things in various ways. I'll say one other thing on this slide, which is that, as Terry mentioned before, it's the machine learning is trialed on a set of data that we got from Greater Cambridge. So GCSP have performed a great service for all English local government in the sense that we've got a lot of data from them that allows us to design a product that is available to other local authorities. It's also trialed on a great deal more generic planning documents as well that are available, freely available, openly available. So over 500,000 records effectively. And that I think is what we've tried to do with the technology. And I think that's where this sort of general impetus for artificial intelligence goes, actually, is this goal of trying to do one thing well. So when myself and my two colleagues who I work on with this, when we sat down and we were trying to think about what to call it and so forth, we were very keen to get the word planning into it, because if we were on this call and you were from public health or something, I would say don't use Plan AI. It's not for that. It's explicitly for land use planning. So that's the purpose, I suppose, and just to try and foreground that's our kind of raison d'etre. That's our mission with this whole thing. Alfie, would you move me on? All right, so my job really is to talk a tiny bit about how it works, what's going on underneath the bonnet, because Terry's described a lot of the process and outcomes and so on. So right at the beginning, when we sat down and we were trying to work out in terms of like the overall schema and design for the technology itself, we had to think about these important parts. And there's differences of vocabulary that apply across local authorities. Not, you'll hear people talk about rep and so forth, and they're not necessarily talking about the same thing. So in that sort of boring, you'd expect someone from university to do this type of thing, I imagine. In that boring kind of seminar room type thing that you might have encountered in your life, we sat down and thought, like, we need some clarity over the definitions of what we're talking about, so that we're able to really, machine learning works on rules. Those rules need to be clearly codified. What are we talking about? So on the left-hand side, we have respondents. So typically, and this is the way we would do this for Cambridge, we frame the analysis on the basis of the respondent. That respondent, I've crassly used Citizen Kane here to represent the citizenry and the Environment Agency to represent statutory consultees. They make a response. And that response can contain many representations. So if I think about use myself as an example, I could write in for the Cambridge local plan, which is currently or was recently out for consultation. I could write in and make, say, three representations. I like policy 1, I don't like policy 2, I'm neutral about policy 3. So the first thing that we had to do is to try and make this kind of distinction so that the machine learning can work on the basis of what it's trying to do for the outputs. And what it will then subsequently do is once it's ingested the initial document, the document that's being consulted upon, it will break those responses down into their constituent representations. So that's an really important thing that planning officers are tasked with doing. So it's trying to mimic aspects of what the kind of the human approach to this would be. And so once it's done that, it then attaches those representations to the document being consulted upon. So in that example I gave a second ago, if I make 3 representations, I like policy 1, I don't like policy 2, I'm neutral about policy 3, it will attach those 3 individual points that I've made, those 3 representations, to the part of the document to which they pertain. And that's a really important part of what the technology does, I suppose. It's important in the sense that it's a really important time-saving element of the whole process. It's something that local planning authority officers really have to do, and it tests the human capacity to do that. When we're talking about somewhere like Cambridge that's getting a very large number of submissions, it really does test the human capacity to be able to break down all those responses into their constituent representations, try and understand the context for the whole consultation in its entirety, extrapolate meaningful messages from that. You know, if I was doing it, I'd remember something from the beginning, something from the end, maybe something from the middle. I could easily miss a representation in one of those responses. The technology obviously is even-handed about this. It doesn't treat any response differently to a different one, and it should be able to make a distinction between all those individual representations that are contained in those responses. So that was our first kind of starting point. Alfie, if you could possibly move the slides on. After that, we need to be able to collate where those responses come from. And planning consultations typically come through one of these three front doors. So places like Cambridge have a portal. So we work with their portal provider, JDI Solutions, who deliver the Opus Consult portal. I'll say in a second, we work the pilots that we're working with now, though. There are different portal providers in there, and we're a university, you know, we're really agnostic about this. We will work with any and all portal providers. They all provide a really useful service, and that they represent this important digital front door through which some public responses come. And so we have to be able to function with that. And so, as Terry said, we've worked well with the JDI Solutions Opus Consult system, to the extent that we've now got this API relationship with them, and are able to produce the summary that Terry showed on his slide. Is basically a call on our technology that produces that AI summary that the citizen is then able to accept, adjust, or reject in its entirety and produce their own. So that would be one common source. Then all local authorities get emails in lots of different formats, from statutory consultees, developers, etc. Many will produce handwritten responses too, from maybe if there's a digitally disenfranchised member of the public, or possibly if there's been a kind of flip chart type exercise in a parish hall somewhere, all of that. So again, I'll take you back to that seminar room right at the beginning. We sat down, spent a long time trying to make sure that we can ingest anything, that it can be completely democratically available. It goes back to the points that Terry was making about the sort of ethics of this. It's no good for us, like we can't stand next to something if we can only receive PDFs from statutory consultees and digital responses through a portal. That's not going to be enough, because it doesn't capture the totality of everyone who could participate. So we have to make sure we can get handwriting into it and lots of different other forms of data. So those are a really sort of essential starting point for us. As I said, it might seem glib, or the type of thing you'd expect someone like me to say about, you know, defining terms and being clear about these types of things, but it is a really important first step in making sure the technology works well. And the testimony that Terry was kind enough to give to us at the start, I think is owed to some extent to this formative stuff that we did together right at the beginning, to make sure that we were treating things in a really kind of agnostic but completely comprehensive way as well. Alfie, if you'd be so kind. Okay, so we're now working with some other local authorities who explicitly don't use the same portal as Cambridge, so that we can stress test it. So that would be the city of Kingston upon Hull in God's own county of Yorkshire, Greenwich in South East London, Liverpool City Region Combined Authority, Milton Keynes, and sunny Tameside in Greater Manchester. They're all in the midst of various moments of consequential public consultation. Some use a portal, some don't. They all collect data of very different types. And so one thing I suppose I'd say about this, and I don't want to tread on the toes of the people who are going to in the slides of some of these pilot authorities in a minute or two, but I'll just say this, that if you see their data side by side, you'll realize that there's the heterogeneity in the data that's collected, of how consultation is conducted, is very wide. There's a very wide variety of data that's being collected. Consultation is not happening in like one uniform way. The reports that are required or produced at the end of it, they're not consistent either. There's a lot of variety in that as well. The document that's being consulted upon, the local plan, whether it's Reg 18 or 19, they're not necessarily consistent either. You know, we might want to look at things like how they're structured, themes, chapters, policies, questions embedded within, etc. So this has been a really massively useful thing for us. Like, we've learned a lot from doing this, and we're only halfway through it. We've learned a lot in terms of the types of data the how it's ingestion is fine, but then how it actually gets translated into output documents and so forth that meet the requirements, the variable requirements of different local authorities, that's a really valuable learning thing for us. And I'm happy and I'm confident to say that the experiences that we've had so far lead me to believe that I'm sure we'll be able to produce meaningful and really helpful responses for each of these local authorities that will save them time, but not just time, but also produce them with an analysis and summarization of responses that is of a good quality as well. Alfie, would you move me along? Okay, yeah, this might require a few taps of your spacebar, but one back possibly. This is just a quick slide to indicate the reports that we produce. So as standard, the technology is queued to produce two types of report. So a summary of every individual response. So as I said before, it will do it at the respondent level. So it will break down that response into its constituent elements, tag it to different policies, themes, chapters, however we want to structure the original document that's been consulted upon, and produce a summary of those responses. So it does that. That mimics what a local planning authority officer typically does. In addition, we also produce the thing that you can see foregrounded on the slides, which is an analysis of the consultation as a whole. So the important messages about what kind of responses are being made, are they positive or neutral in tone, where are they coming from? The diagrams that you can see in the bottom left hand corner use the ONS's output area classification to distinguish like areas, neighborhoods of different type. So we're able to say something meaningful about the nature of the consultation. Are responses emanating from particular areas in a local authority? Are there some places that are underrepresented? That's important to us, I guess, as you know, when you think about what a consultation should be and how it could be arranged, what kind of the full suite of voices that you might want to see come through a consultation exercise. Yes, it's important that we summarize what we get, but it's important to know that is what we get, how it relates to what we could get. That's again a critically important question. So those two documents are what we produce, what the technology produces kind of by default, and that's what we're producing for that set of local authorities that you saw on that previous slide. Alfie, I think it's just my last slide. I think this is my last slide, so I think this is where I'll finish. So this is similar to what Terry said. I suppose I'll try and pick up or take a cue from what Terry said, which is that, you know, we're not a company, we're a university, we're all salaried employees of a university. We are we do this because we're interested in it, and because it's, you know, important to us. We all share an interest in the technology, but I'm a planner, like many of you on this call as well, so I'm interested in how this technology relates to the planning profession and what we do, and to the public as well, like how the public relate to this as a citizen. I want to know that the artificial intelligence that may be used in planning in the future is being adequately tested, is being, you know, appropriately supported with the relevant guardrails, these types of questions. So that public confidence is really important to us. We did lots of outreach at the start of this process. Terry referred to some of it, and so that's really where I want to finish, is to say that these types of these types of talks like we're doing today are important to take, you know, to learn more about that and to try and get the message out there and to try and test it more and to try and get more humans into that loop. I'll stop there, Alfie. I've probably talked too long. I've got bad form for that.
Not at all, Alex. Thank you so much. That was really interesting. I will invite Milton Keynes to speak next, please.
Thanks, Alfie. Yeah, hi, I'm Jacob Wilkins from Milton Keynes City Council. I'm the digital planning lead. I'm just going to talk a bit about some of the motivations for Milton Keynes to get involved in the project, and then some of our lessons learned so far. Next slide, please. So in terms of motivations, as Alex mentioned, we're at Reg 19 stage, so we kind of had a bit of experience of dealing with representations at Regulation 18 stage, so we kind of want to improve efficiency and consistency in the processing of those representations. We're aiming to submit our local plan by the end of March, so we're on a bit of a time crunch, which hopefully this is definitely helping with. to become a digital and data-led service is one of our planning service priorities as well. And as I'm sure people are aware of Milton Keynes and how modern of a city it is, we are an innovative city. So this is working with AI and getting involved in this project is something that we think kind of naturally is something that Milton Keynes is geared up to do. Next slide, please. So in terms of some of our lessons that we've learned so far, when we embarked in the project at the end of last year, we did. I sat down with our policy team and we spoke about how we were going to work through the process of dealing with our representations, and it was kind of decided that we should deal with that primarily through our consultation platform, but we subsequently got less usage of that than we were perhaps expecting. So we kind of had to develop a different approach, which was something we couldn't really properly plan for. So that's something to bear in mind. In terms of communication and collaboration, it's a good idea to make sure that everyone is kind of involved right from the outset. Set expectations, as has already been mentioned, letting people know that AI is intended to help them, but it is maybe more of a starting point, and we should always keep the human in the loop. Then the next couple of points in terms of understanding policy requirements and the differences between Reg 18 and Reg 19. It was quite an iterative process for us to kind of understand exactly what it is that we wanted and how the outputs from Plan AI were going to play into that. Similarly, document formatting, so the way in which we were collecting data and then amending it and forwarding it to Plan AI to process was something that was kind of really key. And some of the conversations that we had with Plan AI were kind of, it would be preferable if this was in this format. So that's definitely something to bear in mind. And then in terms of engaging with data protection, we had to do a data protection impact assessment, and we had to get a data processing agreement with Plan AI. So getting them involved at an early stage was kind of really key part of the process. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacob. That was really helpful and interesting. So I can now invite Greenwich to speak. Have I got Catherine and Marco, please?
Hiya. It's myself that's going to speak. So I'm Catherine McCrory from the Planning Policy team at Royal Borough of Greenwich. And we were really pleased to have the opportunity to be part of this AI pilot and to contribute to shaping how tools can support the local plan process for other local authorities. So it wasn't just a sort of selfish thing, obviously, but you know, how it can help the wider group here. So do you want to move on? Not that there's much info on the next slide, but here we go. So like many authorities, we're working towards a very tight deadline to submit our plan by the end of this year. So we'd sort of started exploring whether AI could genuinely sort of speed up some of the more time-consuming stages of summarising and processing reps, and we were delighted to be offered the opportunity to join the pilot after having sort of a look at sort of what else was out there. And sort of as well as sort of speeding up the process, one of the other things we were sort of considering was how an added benefit would be the sort of consistent approach rather than individual officers in the team working on summarising representations and maybe having a different understanding of what sort of a bias as to what was the most important. If it was all done through one platform, then sort of a consistent approach. So a lot less details on my slides than Jacob's, because when I was asked to do the slides, our consultation had only just closed. It finished on the 8th of Feb, and then sort of took us a kind of a week to get everything together before we sent it over to Liverpool. So sort of hence the lack of details on lessons learned so far, but I can speak verbally to it. So we received our first draft of our report from the team at Liverpool on Monday. So we're still digesting that, but taking part has given us sort of a few issues that or a few initial lessons that it's highlighted that, I can share. And one of the things that Jacob just touched on is the amount of kind of work that our team and then the team at Liverpool had to do to sort of, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but to clean the data, to sort of prepare and structure the reps into a format that was going to, that we could send it over to them in terms of redacting personal information and things, and then what they needed to do to process it through their model. So we sort of, you could have drawn in by Terry's kind of 17 seconds or whatever, but all the kind of week of processing things beforehand and cleaning data, we'd have to do that anyway, but it's something to think about. I suppose the other thing that sort of jumped out so far is that while we've got sort of a summary of our representations, which is great for organising the content, we've kind of the sort of overview report, we've lost sort of the quantitative sense of some of the volume, whether we've had sort of quite a lot of opposition to one site allocation, for example, that hasn't come out that we've got this large level of representation. It's just, there's an objection to it. It hasn't process that kind of the capacity of the response, and that's obviously an important part of understanding the consultation feedback. But I suppose we're not relying on just the summary report we're going to get from the Plan AI. Obviously we read everything ourselves and we'll respond to it all ourselves, but that's one of the initial things that we've noticed. But I suppose it's just like to say overall we see sort of a real potential here, and we're keen to keep working with the team at Liverpool and to sort of refine the approach, and they're very open to, they very much shared this was the first draft you were getting, and we've already had a discussion about what we're going to try to adjust some parameters and things to see whether it can become exactly what we're going to need. So we're very keen to keep working together and refine the approach to make sure that sort of benefits are felt across the whole plan making process. So delighted to be involved, happy to still still be here and to hopefully make some contribution to how it works in the long run.
Brilliant. Thank you, Catherine. I think we've got a couple of minutes left. I appreciate some people might have to drop off now, but we have had a lot of questions coming through in the chat section, which is brilliant. If you've got further questions that we don't get to today, please do feel free to pop them into the chat. We can collate them and we can look at getting back to people after this session. But just to go through a couple while we're all together, we've got a question on how was this trained? Was it Laura, pre-trained, or RAG? So assume that one is for you, Alex, please.
Yeah, so it's been trialed on 500,000 records. The specifics of that, I would defer to one of my colleagues who actually did more of the kind of technical aspects of it than that. So if you could possibly take that question, Alfie, maybe we could provide a written response for that person.
Yeah, absolutely. We have another question here. This is obviously tested for public consultations around policy documents, but has it been tested on planning applications within development management?
So we've done some outline testing, looking at aspects of objection letters to planning applications, but that's as far as we've got with it. We've tried to maintain a focus, and we've got quite a lot on with the pilots, etc., dealing just primarily with public consultation. We've done a little bit of preliminary testing, looking at development aspects of development management, but that's kind of like it's an aspect of work that's important to us, but it's a secondary concern, if you see what I mean at the minute. Like our primary focus is on Greenwich and Milton Keynes and so forth, who you've just heard from. So that's our principal focus. But yeah, we have started to look at development management because it's clearly an area which is adjacent to this. There's some similarities to what you might do in that area, or what a planning officer might do in that area, to what the technology is doing here.
Thank you. And as we say, we've got lots of interesting questions on here, so we'll try and respond to people. I am conscious of time, so I am just going to move us on to the next steps here. So we've obviously got some really interesting information. We're not quite at the end of this pilot yet. So the next steps for this piece of work will be collecting all the final results from the 5 LPAs that have taken part in this pilot. So they've been asked to measure their baselines, i.e. how long this process takes without the AI, and then we can measure it against how long it's taken afterwards. So we will be publishing that information, so you can see how all 5 LPAs have performed throughout. And there will be a blueprint coming from Cambridge as well. So if you are interested in adopting this type of work moving forward, you'll have a nice set of instructions on how they've done it. So that is everything on this particular piece of work. I am just going to give a quick update on other PropTech opportunities. So as some of you will have seen, we had round 6 on that lovely timeline of the PropTech Innovation Fund. We are now working with Public to make £2.4 million available for up to 12 pilots, which will focus on 2 different challenge statements. Challenge statement 1 is looking at local plans. So how can scalable digital approaches help align evidence and policy across different plan making boundaries and tiers? And the second one is going to be looking at Section 106 decision making. So how can digital interventions reduce delays caused by Section 106 negotiations, including viability, to accelerate local authority decision making on applications? So these were published on Monday. We are looking for applications to go live as of the 4th of March. And we want applications to include lots of different stakeholders, so a consortium. And I will just move on to the timeline. So as I mentioned, those challenges were announced on the 23rd. Applications will open on the 4th. We will be having a matchmaking event on the 17th. So if you're a PropTech or a local authority that's interested in taking part, but not quite sure who else is going to be doing that to form those consortia, please do come along and we can start introducing you all and hopefully come up with some really interesting project teams. We will close the applications on the 29th of April and look to announce the winners in mid-June. There is a QR code on the screen as well. If anyone needs to take a quick picture of that, there's some more details that can be found on the website that we've set up for this challenge. And finally, I'll pass over to my colleague, Will.
Thanks, Alfie. Yeah, thanks everyone for the great show and tell. Hi all, I'm a delivery lead in the property technology team in the digital planning program. We just wanted to flag a survey we're currently running. So we want to get some feedback from councils who've participated in previous rounds of the PropTech Innovation Fund. Particularly want to know like how participating in the fund has helped you adopt digital tools and continue to adopt digital tools once your participation in the fund has ended. The survey is closing next Wednesday on the 4th of March. I'll pop the link in the chat as well. But please, like as before, if you've got time, scan a QR code, take a picture of it. And we really appreciate any time you have to complete a response. Hopefully take 5-10 minutes or so. So really appreciate any time you have the next few days to do that for us. Thanks so much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Will. And thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. We hope you enjoyed the session and do contact us if you've got any other questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Alfie. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.